Hello, and welcome to 5 Minute Math. For today's number talk, we are looking at the fraction 31 over 41, or 31/41, and we're trying to decide if that's closest to 0, 1/2, or 1. So one way that we can think about this would be to look at that denominator, 41. And how can we use that on this number line here and compare and order that fraction? Well, it's going to be easiest if everything has the same denominator, because then we could just compare numerators. So let's rewrite these fractions as 41sts. Well, 0 is pretty easy because 0 over any denominator is equal to 0. So I'm just going to make it 0 over 41. 1 is also pretty simple. If 41 is the denominator I want it to look like, all I need to do is match the numerator with the denominator, because 1 whole is equal to any fraction where you have the same numerator and denominator. So 41 over 41, or 41/41, that is equal to 1. Now my 1/2 is going to be a little bit tricky, because if you're thinking what's half of 41, that's an odd number, which means we're going to need a decimal. One way to think about it would be like this. All right, so if I had the fraction on either side, what would it be? Well, half of 40, that's easy, that's 20. Half of 42, this is going to be a little bit bigger, that's 21. So what's halfway in between 20 and 21? Now, it's not going to be a whole number, but it is going to be a decimal. You can say 20.5, 20 and 5/10, or really that's just 20.5. All right, so I've got my halfway point. And so my 31 is definitely going to fall between these two, my 1/2 and my 1, so it's not going to be that right there. And honestly, that's going to be pretty close. Look how far away that 31 is from 20.5, how far away it is from 41. It's almost in the middle, but I don't want it to be right in the middle, because if it's right in the middle, right, that's going to be difficult. I want it to be a little bit closer to one or the other. So let's cut our half in half. Think about, and I'll visually draw it here. Let's say we have a rectangle, and I've cut it in half. That's what my number line represents. If I cut my half in half, what do I get? I get fourths. So let's cut this number line into smaller pieces. Let's say that's 1/4. We know that 1/2 is equal to 2/4. Right, there's my 3/4. And then obviously my 1/2 is equal to 4/4. Right, any fraction that is the same numerator and denominator is equal to 1. So if my 31/41 lands on this side, it's closer to 1/2. If it lands on this side, right, it's going to be closer to 1/2. So that denominator 4 doesn't help me. So I need to figure out, okay, what is halfway in between 1/2 and 1, or in this case, 20.5 and 41. Okay, so let's see what the difference is here. Okay, so I've got 40 minus 20.5. So let's make sure we line up the decimals. Let's make sure we put that 0 there so we do it correctly. I need to regroup here. It's 0.5. Okay, so it's 20.5, which is what we had, so we could have done that without the subtraction. We need to figure out what half of that is, because that's what this 41 is going to need as its numerator right there. So let's cut that in half. So there's two. We could do the long division if we want to, or we could just cut each chunk in half, right? So what's half of 20? Well, half of 20 is 10. What's half of 0.5? Well, that's going to be difficult, but what if I make it 0.50? Oh, that's easy. It's like 50 cents. Half of 50 cents is a quarter, 0.25, right? So that 10.25 is going to be half of that, but I need to add that to what I've already got there, that 20.5, because really this is the 3/4. If I wanted to rewrite that 1/4, I could do 10.25, but since this is 3/4, it's above the 20.5. So let's add these two together. All of this work is going to get us 30.75. So let's rewrite this here. I'll rewrite it above. 30.75 over 41. Now, look at our numerator up there, 31. If you want to really get technical, it's 31 and 0/100. And so that is just going to be a little bit, I mean, just a hair, 25/100. above that 30.75. It is really, really close, but it's just a bit above. If it's just a bit above, that means this one is actually closest to 1.